I cannot wait to see it. It's a great clash of styles. The beautiful boxing and the Greco-Roman wrestling of Ilia Topuria combined with the supreme confidence. And of course, now he's bigger, he's stronger, he's looking ripped. He hasn't got to drink loads of red wine on the Thursday night to make the weight. He's coming in refreshed, stronger, bigger. The punching power will be improved. The strength will be better. The cardio will be better without those nasty weight cuts.
I am curious. Like, I was curious like anybody else with Topuria versus Makhachev, right? Everybody wanted that fight. But I'm just as excited for Topuria and like Oliveira. I think that'll be such a good gauge as to how Topuria is going to move around in that division, moving up in the weight division, fighting heavier guys, what he looks like. I'm really excited for that proposition.
I mean, listen, in terms of exciting fights, I think what we've seen is Topuria trying to track people down. He bides his time, he's cutting people off, he's getting his reads, and then he unloads. He's not going to have to search for Charles Oliveira. Charles Oliveira fights with a lot of pressure. He fights moving forward. He doesn't know how to fight any other way. I think from the first bell, this is going to be absolute chaos.
The way Topuria is able to touch the body is something that I think it's going to play a big role in this fight. Charles likes to stand very tall. He kind of leaves that body open a little bit. We've seen him go down from body shots in the past. And people forget, or actually people don't forget, people just might not know this, that Ilia Topuria's base, in the way he came up on the regional scene, you would not think that he's this devastating puncher. He really shined as a grappler, really shined with his wrestling. And while Charles Oliveira is the all-time submission leader, the greatest ground specialist we've ever seen in the UFC, I think that it's going to be very hard for Charles to submit Ilia Topuria.
What is Ilia like at 155 pounds? Can he handle the weight? Can, what exactly, where is he at in that position? Can he handle the weight? Can he handle the length of Charles? The high knees, if he dips his head, the knees coming through the middle. Charles Oliveira is dangerous. I mean, he's got the height. He's got the push kicks. He's got good leg kicks. He can kick the head really well. He can jump on the ghillie extremely well.
But at the same time, it's going to be the endurance of Topuria that's going to overcome Charles Oliveira, because you're going to have a bumpy road for the first couple of minutes until everything settles down. And whether Topuria puts him away or takes him into the second round, he's going to need to go through a bit of a ringer, I would say. Defend some submissions, take a few shots. He might get a bit bloodied, get his nose bust a bit, because Oliveira's long and bony and chaotic, But at the same time, I do feel like Topuria's got the skills and the maturity in his game to certainly kind of smother everything that Oliveira can do for the first couple of minutes and get past it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think Charles Oliveira, his best chance is, getting those scrambles on the ground. I think that he seems to be, from what we've seen, he seems to be a more potent submission artist than Ilia Topuria. Now, I want to see a little bit more on the ground from Ilia Topuria. Typically, he hurts guys on the feet, and that's pretty much it. Or, so he looked great against Bryce Mitchell. How high level Bryce Mitchell is, I don't know. But he's very good. He submitted a lot of other guys, and Ilia Topuria made it look pretty easy on the ground against Bryce Mitchell. So it's possible that he's better than Charles Oliveira. I haven't seen it yet enough to say, unequivocally that he's better, but it's very possible. I think that Ilia's best shot is getting into boxing range, being in the pocket, and taking him out there. But Charles Oliveira needs to keep the fight on the outside.
I saw Kenny Florian, the great, legendary Kenny Florian, of course, talking about this fight recently. And he had an analogy that I thought was genius, right? He was talking about this fight, and then he likened it to the way that they both dress. They said, Charles Oliveira, anytime he dresses, he's going to have some loud suit on. It's going to be bright red or orange or yellow and stuff. It's flashy, it's loud, it's in your face. Whereas Topuria, he dresses nice. He'll have a suit on, but it'll be much more. Yeah. It's smooth, it's refined, it's understated. He's got the rolls, you know what I mean? He's giving you that little look. He looks like he's got a bit of mascara on. He's going to give you a kiss. But he's understated, you know what I'm saying? And he said, and it's kind of like like their fighting styles. They said, where Charles Oliveira comes forward, he's loud, he's in your face, he'll snap up some mind-blowing submission, whereas Topuria sticks to the fundamentals and the basics, and he's not as flashy, and he doesn't take risks, and he's very, very calculated, but uses the fundamentals and the basics to an extremely high level. And I just thought that was a really good comparison.
When I look at this fight, I think of this fight stylistically. I think, okay, the explosive power and the power in the hands, and it's crazy to say that. You have to go with more of Ilia Topuria, right? Ilia Topuria goes high, low. He can go to the body. He can go up top. He's been knocking people out cold. That means Max Holloway, 2 future Hall of Famers. He knocked out. None of those guys went championship rounds. We saw him one time at 155 pounds where he did get hurt against Burns. Was that his name? Against Jai Herbert, but he got hurt. He got dropped, but the matador in him, he came back, he ended up knocking him out. Charles Oliveira is the bigger fighter. Charles Oliveira has fought the who's at 155 pounds. I mean, everything absolutely changes, man, with Charles Oliveira taking down Michael Chandler, with Charles Oliveira taking down Justin Gaethje with those beautiful double legs.
That's a very interesting fight. On the inside of the middle, you got Charles with those great knees, great height, and great length, so there's danger there. There's Charles got dangers. He's dangerous on the ground with Topuria, but Topuria is no joke on the ground either. He's got a very good ground game, so you cannot think that if he takes Charles down there, that's over for Topuria. No. It could be over for Charles because he can put some heavy damage on him. So what I'm saying is this fight's extremely competitive.
I think Topuria is a perfect blend of dangerous on the feet with power. He's not a real kicker, where Charles is very good, especially with that front push and deep kick that he throws. He uses it as a jab, and he keeps on coming back to hitting you in the solar plexus, hitting you to the sternum, all these places that he keeps on popping. It affects you. It affects your breathing rhythm. It does a lot of things to you. And so he uses more of the kickboxing, Muay Thai look. He brings the leg up a lot and stuff, where Topuria is more boxing centric, but he'll kick at times. But I just look at this fight. They're so well matched. It's the question of who's going to land. I do think that Topuria actually has the more power. I think he is the heavier hitter, even though he's coming from the 145s, and Charles fought at 145, but he's the heavier handed guy.
It's different at lightweight. The finishing potential at lightweight is very different than the featherweight division. When at featherweight, you see a guy like Ilia Topuria who just can knock you out, and all of a sudden they stand out as this like insane finishing potential type of guy. You've got Josh Emmett, who might get a KO once every 5 fights, and all of a sudden he's one of the hardest hitters. So I do feel like finishing potential stands out a lot more at featherweight than it does at lightweight. So Ilia's going to be facing a much more dangerous fighter in front of him. Not in terms of skill. You got Volkanovski at featherweight. These are very skilled guys. Max Holloway. But in terms of danger, and Ilia is a guy who throws himself into danger in these fights. And Charles Oliveira is, if you get dangerous with him, he's like, it amplifies his level of skill. It does amplify his level of skill. However, this needs to be said. And Ilia Topuria said this not that long ago as well about this matchup. Oliveira has lost a lot, and he's been dropped a lot. And Ilia Topuria seems to hurt people quite often and drop them quite often and make them lose a lot, considering his undefeated record right now. So I do think that Ilia Topuria is going to win this fight.
UFC 317, we got Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira, and I'm pretty sure Charles is a big underdog. He's got that tall Muay Thai style. He stands up really tall, which could be a problem when you're facing a boxer like Ilia. But also, it takes Ilia slipping the way he does, ducking the way he does, to run into one of those knees to change everything.
I'm excited for that one.
I'm excited for that one too.
And look, I think the world of Ilia Topuria. I think he's got big power in his hands. He's technically very sound on the feet with his defense. I think he's a fantastic fighter. Shorter, stockier, harder to take down. But I also take a look at the way that Charles was able to beat Michael Chandler, especially in the last fight. He was able to get to the single leg. He was able to lift and elevate. People underestimate Charles's ability to wrestle. You know, he's got great wrestling. He's got great jiu-jitsu. He still utilizes his jiu-jitsu. I think that Ilia, he's going to be a shorter and stockier guy. It's going to be harder to deal with if it does come into any ground situations. But I mean, Charles Oliveira is fantastic on the ground.
Man, that's one where your heart's telling you, you know, Charles, and your brain's telling you Ilia. It's just that one's a coin flip. Can't count Charles out. Ilia's on an absolute tear. You know, Charles does get hit and Ilia cracks. That fight I am very excited for.
For me, what's really interesting to see is if Ilia's style will translate, because at you know, from 145 to 155 to the same way, because there is a different, obviously there's a different size, but there's going to be a different pressure in that size difference. So will he be able to apply the same pressure at 155? Will he be able to handle the grappling at 155? And I feel like the answer is yes, but I'm looking forward to seeing it, especially against a guy like Charles. Charles is fantastic.
On its own terms, between Ilia and Charles Oliveira, you're going to get an absolutely sensational main event between two, you know, literally former champions, right? A guy in Oliveira, former champion in 155, and obviously former champion at 45 in Topuria. He is obviously Topuria going for a second weight class title. Now you're adding a degree of history on top where he could now etch his name into the list of fighters who have achieved such a designation, which of course is quite minimal. On top of it, it's going to be action-packed. I think it's just hard to imagine how either of these guys is going to turn in a boring performance.
When I look at the technicalities of each guy, Ilia Topuria is the better guy. Oof. I genuinely believe that. I think technically he is the better guy. Will he present the opportunities for Charles to be Charles, or will it be a clinic?
What I see in mixed martial arts, I think the biggest deficit when it comes to skills in mixed martial arts right now is the defensive skills. And even if you go into Muay Thai, you go into boxing, it's also the least appreciated thing, I think, as well. And you know, Oliveira is unkillable in the way that he's durable, in the way that Gaethje, you know, has been unkillable. You know, it's like they do it with their chin. That is not a long-term strategy, unfortunately. And what I see from Topuria is defensively, he's so sound. He knows how to really use that shell extremely well. He's one of the few guys that can kind of use that Floyd Mayweather type of style where he will hide behind that shoulder extremely well. He knows when to blade his body when punches are coming at him. He's very disciplined in that regard. Oliveira is finishing a lot of guys that I think defensively don't have the same capabilities that Topuria has. So yeah, if you're looking at it from a perspective of like your traditional MMA guy who's coming forward and just thinking about kill or be killed, yeah, Oliveira is going to catch you. And if he does, he's going to get you out of there. Topuria doesn't really have that style. It's like everything's very much rooted from like, I don't come out until I have a shot. He's kind of like a sniper. You don't see him, and he's not in position until he's ready to kill. Topuria is bringing this defensive side, especially in that boxing range, that I don't think a whole lot of people possess. And I'm curious to see whether Topuria's power and his finishing skills will be there at 155 pounds. We've seen it before at 155, but that was Jai Herbert. This is Charles Oliveira. So going to be an amazing fight.
On the inside, striking, it's going to be who's got the better knees, who's got the height. Charles. So Charles got better knees, got the height, got the reach. You know, who's got the better chin? Topuria. Who's got the better boxing? Topuria. Who's got the better takedowns? Topuria. You know, on the ground, as far as better jiu-jitsu and all that, okay, that's an unknown. That's an unknown. We just know they're well-versed. I'm not saying that Charles has all these submission wins, so he's better than Topuria. We don't know because they haven't fought each other. You know, we have to let them fight each other to decide who's got the superior ground.
But if we had to guess,
if I had to guess
yes.
who has the better ground, I'm gonna go slightly Charles.
The way Charles comes forward with those reckless knees,
and he's got the chin floating up high too.
Stands up tall like a really tall Muay Thai guy, and Ilia's like a low boxer. That's a dangerous fight for Charles.
Yeah, I don't know how he's going to do it lightweight though. Maybe you can speak on that. He's a smaller guy coming up.
It's a smaller coming up. It'll be interesting because he is bigger. From when I heard him on the Joe Rogan podcast, like 191, I think he was walking around. It's massive. So for him to cut to 145 seems almost like, how did he do that? But now that he's going up to 155, I always like when athletes go up.
But I will say this, when I think of this fight, I always think of the distance that Charles Oliveira brings, and particularly he likes to be in close. And the fact that he likes to be in close with an inside fighter, it doesn't make sense. And that was one thing, the person that needs to make adjustments in this fight, typically you would say the lighter fighter, the smaller fighter going up, but not really.
So it's going to be one of those where Ilia's got more opportunities than Charles does. But Charles can surprise us with his length, you know, and up the middle would be really, really well suited for him. And the kicks too, you know, body, head type thing, you know, low, high.
The push kicks I get a little concerned about, because if you go back and you watch when Ilia fought Volk and when he fought, who else was it? And Bryce Mitchell. A lot of the funky kicks, all those things, Ilia's really good at keeping his hands defensively right by his chin, but he swipes away really well with the kicks. And, you know, and he blocks really well. He keeps his defense pretty tight, and then he counters really well off of your kicks.
So I think if Ilia Topuria is going to lose or Oliveira is going to try and win, he's going to try and damage Topuria from the clinch, shoot offensively with a grappling, which he could get something done from. He could get a takedown and get the back. That's Oliveira. You know, he could do that, but we haven't seen that. And I don't think Ilia's like more lost on the ground than Michael Chandler is. So I'm going to go with Ilia Topuria. I think there'll be a moment where he knocks down Charles quite badly, stands him back up after like a failed TKO finish, and then puts it on him again and maybe puts Charles Oliveira away with a body shot, headshot combination up against the cage. I've got Ilia Topuria winning.
Do you think Ilia beats Charles then?
I think he might, to be honest. Charles is a bit chinny and he always gets cracked. If he gets him down, I can see him winning, because that 10 pounds difference is a big difference. Charles is like my height, Ilia's like down here. It's probably better for me if Ilia wins the belt.